right, everybody. Thanks for joining us again for today's episode of FinOps Friday. Today, we have Chase Bennett on the line with us. Chase has been in FinOps and a practitioner for nearly a decade now, about 8 years or so. Chase is about to land in his next adventure. He's going to let that drop when it drops, though, so we're not going to pester him about that today. But Chase, thanks for being on here, man.
Sure thing, Hunter. Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here. And let's be honest, this has been a long time coming. So,
Yeah, I've really enjoyed the conversations we've been having around all of this, and it's been good to know you as well. Talk to us about your career and how you got into FinOps and kind of where it's going and the things you've experienced a bit.
yeah. I'm going on about 8 years in FinOps. So I've been really on a few different sides of the coin. So I started my career, I started my career outside of FinOps, but I started my FinOps career working on the vendor side and doing implementation. So I got to interface directly with customers, and it showed me the vendor side. How do we build a FinOps organization? How do we start it from the ground up? And then I got to go run FinOps. And that's where I've spent probably the last 6 years or so was in FinOps leadership. I was head of FinOps for a few different companies and in other management positions as well. So it's given me a lot of perspective onto both sides of the coin and a little bit of everywhere in between. So I found it to be very insightful, and I think it makes me well postured to sort of speak in the topic. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I think so too, man. It's glad to have you here today and to talk about it. And I think that your resume speaks for itself for the different organizations and leadership roles that you've had. So we're really happy to have you on today, man.
Thank you.
Sure. So, talking about FinOps, right? We want to dive in today to the collaborative nature of FinOps and the kind of like people forward nature of this profession, the framework and everything. Because if you read through the FinOps framework, it's kind of like, it almost feels sometimes to me like that's the obvious part. And then they want to get into the details and everything. And I think that the nature of these professions of like finance and engineering and technical people is so often they tend to not be, people necessarily, or personable people. There's kind of a stereotype there. It's not true for everybody, obviously, right? But like, I think it's important to highlight how important interpersonal communication and collaboration skills and focusing on that aspect of FinOps is in order to have a successful organization. And I'd love to dive into this concept of like FinOps being a people profession, right? Which is kind of your term for what we're talking about today, and let you kind of talk about your experiences with that and maybe almost framework out that idea here with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I couldn't agree more. Admittedly, I'm a little biased because I do love the human element of my job. It's the most important part of it. But bias aside, I really do think that, it is the most important part of what we do. FinOps isn't ultimately about saving money. It's about helping people make better decisions. Everything else comes from that. At the end of the day, we've spent years talking about cloud optimization, cost allocation, unit economics, now AI, and we've heard it, which I think is part of the irony, right? Like we've spent so much, even at FinOps X this year, talking about AI, and it's super important, and I wouldn't change that. But I think that we have accidentally started optimizing away the human element. I want to talk about the people behind FinOps. Because despite all of the dashboards, despite all of the automation, FinOps has always been a people business. Most of my day isn't spent in spreadsheets. It's spent in conversations. Some of those conversations are now with Claude. Some of those conversations are now with, the different AI stuff too. We can't lie there. But at the end of the day, I'm talking with engineering. I'm talking with finance, security, executives, the product organization, procurement. None of these groups have identical goals by any means. And what is my job as a FinOps practitioner? It's alignment. The technology isn't the hardest part. Getting people to agree upon what should happen is. So, you have to put yourself in the shoes of that engineering leader. You have to put yourself in the shoes of finance and understand what their goals are, what their priorities are, how to influence. Like something that I've always said is, and I think other people have heard me say this in the organization too. I might have even said this on another podcast. I'll recycle a little bit. It doesn't matter if you're in FinOps sales, or if you are a practitioner, or if you are somewhere in between. You are a salesperson, whether you want to believe that or not. Because at the end of the day, we're not calling ourselves salespeople, but we are selling prioritization. We're selling governance. We're selling accountability. We're selling culture, delayed gratification, organizational change. Every optimization starts with somebody saying, can you change how you work? And that is a difficult ask, like this part of this is not like, it's not a new topic. I feel like others have said this as well, but I do think it's worth reinforcing now more than ever. Companies are in this AI race. Like every company is feeling the competition. They're feeling the expenses from AI. They're looking for ways to save, and they're running out of patience, right? So bottom line is taking a massive priority. But you said it a minute ago. And so before we get into some of that, like I do want to say, yes, optimization is personal. Optimization is invasive. Exactly what we're saying. Like we are interrupting the workflow of somebody else. Like I was saying, from their perspective, it's more work, it's more meetings, it's risk, it's somebody touching their baby. You're entering somebody's workflow, you're questioning decisions, you're asking why did you choose to do this and not that? You're asking them to rebuild something that already works. It's uncomfortable. And if you ignore that, if you go into that without the empathy of the perspective of the other person, people resist. I believe you won't be as successful. I'm sure there are people out there that have been successful by being the hammer, right? And in my opinion, every stick needs a carrot, right? And I'm not saying it's all one or the other. I just think that engineers often have pride and identity tied to what they've built. And that great FinOps starts with curiosity. It starts with, help me understand why, instead of the criticism of, you should have done this, or we need to do this to get this number here, right? It's the same thing. It's just different delivery. I will tell you, Hunter, I have learned more about how to be successful in a FinOps role from sales self-help books than I have from just about anything else. This is true and true a people organization. This is an emotionally intelligent role in order to influence your industry into adopting FinOps, into executing FinOps, and being successful.
And all the organizations that are out there that have like really high customer service and sales success rates, right? Companies like Hilton and Enterprise Rent-A-Car and some others out there where they've literally written books about their success with customer service and able to publish really concrete numbers about, customer service being profitable towards them. They'll all say that when you're managing people, you have to manage to the individual because people are all different.
So two things I want to touch on there. One, the pickup truck versus the sedan. This is exactly how I describe my job at dinner tables, where people are like, so what do you do for work? They don't work in FinOps, I'm sure we've all had those conversations. And that's exactly how I describe it. I say, imagine somebody's driving a stretch Hummer to work every day. And I tell them that, hey, you really just need a Corolla to get from A to B. Well, they don't want to drive a Corolla because they're in a stretch Hummer. I give them the Toyota 4Runner and everybody wins. So they get from A to B just as fast. I make sure that they know that. And they still get to look cool while doing it. And the company still saves a ton of money.
So what are we seeing and what has been your experience so far when it comes to AI and like high urgency initiatives, let's call them, when you're working with people from a FinOps perspective, right?
Yeah. So AI, yeah, interesting topic for sure, and a hot one right now. AI changes everything. We're entering the AI era. It's going to absolutely help with so much of the day-to-day work. Fantastic. You know, use it. Recommendations, forecasting, right sizing, writing code for engineers. Like, it is great for all these things, and it absolutely does add productivity. But what's left for humans? Again, the relationships, the trust, the judgment, the empathy, the context, the politics, the leadership. Everyone hates the P word, politics, but it is so important in what we do. It's important to get that buy-in. But I also worry about some of the other sides of AI and the danger of optimizing humans. We've become so good at optimizing systems that we're starting to optimize people. For example, and this one's a little bit less AI, less FinOps related, but definitely AI related. I have a friend that was laid off last year. Many folks probably listening to this today have experienced layoffs, or had a close family or friend or colleague who has experienced layoffs. It's a heavy subject. It's awful. It also requires a high level of emotional intelligence for these people. And this is, it's sad. We've seen the optimizations eventually result in layoffs. Not because FinOps wanted layoffs, but because increased efficiency changes organizations, and that's a reality. So we shouldn't celebrate optimization without acknowledging its impact. You can be proud of your work while also recognizing that someone may have experienced that outcome differently, and that's emotional maturity. With my friend that was laid off, he has been actively applying and interviewing like crazy this year. And I will tell you from his experience, he has shown up for first round interviews a handful of times already. Got the nice shirt on, walked into the room, the virtual room now. These are all like, online interviews. So, and then he's met with an agentic chatbot to conduct his first round interview. And this has happened more than once to him. So this is where I say that I think we're optimizing the human element away a little too much, because if I'm interviewing people, the human element is so important to me because the job requires you to have a solid human element. So how do you interface with management? How do you interface with me? What do you take away from our conversation? To me, that's an important part of a good employee, is a good listener, right? And that's not something that I think that AI can evaluate today. What can AI measure? What KPIs does AI take into account, and where are its shortcomings, right? The example you gave with your friend reporting to an AI manager, right? Can an AI notice nervousness? Can it notice potential? Can it evaluate curiosity, kindness, passion? And I think passion is a big one. We learned decades ago, Google and some of these other big tech industries figured it out. Happy employees are productive employees, right? And it brings that passion out of people. Sometimes they think the little things don't matter now, like the snacks and the video games at work, or whatever it is, right? But people are motivated by these things, and it drives them to want to work harder. It's like the law of reciprocity. If you do something kind for somebody, subliminally that person feels like they owe you something, even though you did it unconditionally, right? Hunter, let's go out to lunch. Bill's on me. You're gonna remember that. You might even
wait.
Want
were you
to,
serious? Because I just wrote that down.
Let's go. Yeah, we're going with sushi.
Sorry, go ahead.
But subliminally, your mind might go oh man, Chase did a favor for me. I'm gonna find a way to repay that kindness. Let's not use AI to automate empathy, right? Automate repetitive work. Use AI to eliminate copying and summarizing and reporting and analysis. But don't remove the mentoring. Don't remove the listening. Building relationships, the difficult conversations, and celebrating the wins together as an organization. These things are extremely incentivizing and motivating to our workforce, and it's an important part of what we do. And also we're still in the phase where AI needs to be checked, and we've already optimized for the productivity increase that AI gives us. So I know in my experience, like we're being asked to complete things in a fraction of the time that we used to. And I'm not even talking like, oh, we used to have a week to do this. Now we've got 3 days. It's like, no, tomorrow, today, like we need this, right? And when we're doing that, I don't have time to check AI and make sure that it's accurate. Like I have to get this deliverable back out to my leadership and hope that AI didn't, fudge it. Right. And that can be really difficult. We've all had the example of, where we've asked ChatGPT or something a question at work or personal, right? And we've been like, that doesn't sound right, you know? But when we're talking in millions of dollars and it's off by 100,000, like I might not pick that up because I haven't looked at it close enough for long enough. And that could be a big difference in a bet to an organization. It could be the difference in somebody getting laid off or not, And so it's like the accuracy is still extremely important. So I guess the rise of AI in the workplace, it's incredible. It is. It's good at analysis. It's good at recommendations. It's good at automation. Excuse me. Um, but we're already seeing it conduct first round interviews. We're seeing it replace management. Like that's crazy. Hunter, that's the first time I've heard that example. And that is like bewildering to me because I don't think this is the point. But what I worry is that, again, those optimizations are addicting and that industries are seeing examples of where, well, what if we did this? What if we did that? For the FinOps leaders out there like myself, like, we're at an interesting intersection, right? Think about it this way. Our objective is bottom line. FinOps objective is bottom line in a lot of ways, right? Like, the framework will tell you it's helping customers make good decisions, and your customers are internal. It's your stakeholders, right? It's your engineering team, your finance. So, but optimization is our goal, right? As people leaders, people are also our goal. Emotional intelligence is mandatory for leadership, right? We also interface with executives. So, we look at the world through a different lens because executives look at the world through a different lens. They're very detached from what's happening on the ground, not intentionally, and no shade at the executives. It's just a matter of fact, right? Like you are far detached from, where the work is being done at times. And so it's easy to, and I'm gonna throw another quote in there, but it's easy to lose that human element because, you are far detached. It's like we become pawns on a chessboard, and we become known as resources and headcount rather than chase and hunter, right? And the quote that I was going to throw in from Brene Brown is, "People are hard to hate close up. Move in." So and the point is like, when you become a little bit more attached, when you get to know these people on the level, when you realize that Hunter is a star performer who puts his blood, sweat, and tears into this project, then you realize we can't afford to lose Hunter.
If you're focusing on the people and driving the people towards the goal, and you're doing a good job of that, the numbers will come. In fact, you'll probably blow them away, because if you focus only on the numbers, then your goal is going to be the numbers when you could probably go past them. Right? If you really just focus on the pure things that are important. And
Absolutely.
Again, a lot of this stuff, people, listen, we know it's easier said than done. This is not easy stuff we're talking about. And it's very uncomfortable for some people that aren't extroverted and have like high emotional intelligence and all this stuff. And I get it, but there is effort that can be made in these directions, and it will make your life easier. And it'll make the lives of the people around you easier, and it'll help you optimize the people, not optimize the people out of the process. Right? So, yeah. Chase, in conclusion for this conversation, I want to say thank you so much for your time today. This has been a great conversation. I really appreciate, the kind of this output from the experience you've had from being a FinOps practitioner for so long. I want to take a second here. So let's boil this down really quick. I want to try to summarize the top 5 takeaways here from what we talked about today. And I want you to affirm I'm just kidding. I want you to just let me know if you agree with this or not, right? But I would say the first thing that we're talking about is that FinOps is a people-first profession. And if we focus on the relationships, right, as part of our operational processes, then we're going to be much more successful than if we just approach it as numbers on a page. Was that a fair takeaway?
Yeah. Move the metrics, right? Change the metrics a little bit. Like, the things that KPIs can't measure, I think would be a good one.
And another takeaway is that you've got to be the person selling yourself and also letting other people sell themselves as part of this process, right? The point is, like, listen to what they're saying, find out what drives them, and let them get to know you a little bit, right? In a back and forth conversation as part of this process, that's going to be different for every person that you interact with, from where you're at looking up as well as down, right? And laterally across the board, right?
Absolutely.
But you can kind of build a people related process chart, diagram, etc. Take notes on people's behavior, right? Remember stuff about them, write it down, because it can help you and help them, right, at the same time. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another thing is, optimization is personal, but we're not trying to optimize people out of the processes, right? Because we lean on that too hard, we're going to lose the people that know about the source of truth, why things were built, why things are the way they are.
Use AI to automate the things that it can automate, but don't automate emotional intelligence. And remember that emotional intelligence is a FinOps skill. It's a leadership skill. It's a sales skill. And we all know now that FinOps is a sales role. Don't automate empathy, right? So, AI may become the best at finding optimizations. Humans will still need to inspire the courage to make them.
All right, great. Well, Chase, thank you so much again for your time today. Really appreciate it. This was a wonderful conversation, man. Looking forward to talking to you again later on down the road here and finding out where you landed, man. Good luck with the next step in your career. Everybody, check out past episodes of FinOps Fridays out there. We've got interviews with folks from the FinOps Foundation and a whole lot of other people on there that have been done recently, as well as head on over to FinOps.org to learn about those KPIs. They do have a lot of great information on there about, getting buy-in, breaking down barriers, and gamification and other topics like that in the FinOps Foundation. Go ahead, check that out. And as always, you can head over to IBM.com, Aptio.com for their FinOps information, what they offer there. Again, Chase, thank you so much again for your time today. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you next time, man.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, Hunter. Until next time. Thank you, everybody. Look forward to seeing you around.